Well, welcome to Mallorca and welcome to the Best Centre. On the programme today we have the swimming news roundup after a busy weekend, and then we head to triathlon with interviews with Stu Robinson and the legendary Joe Friel. But we start in the US, where there was no surprise as Texas romped to their 11th NC2A title. The Longhorns easily saw off defending champions Cal Berkeley, winning by 129 points. One to watch in Kazan, Ryan Murphy. He won the 200 backstroke by over 2 seconds, and sweeping the backstrokes for a second straight year, he took down Ryan Lochtey's American record, which now stands at 136.77. Whatever that means. Now, the Spanish National Championships are in Malaga, and with 1 day left of the trials, Maria Belmonte is having another busy week. 436.14 in the 400 medley sees her second in the world rankings. She's behind Amy Wilmot's 435.7 from the Speedo Flanders Cup. Belmonte also took wins in the 200 fly and the 800 free. 1 day still to go, remember. The 200 fly, a world-leading 205.86. Now, there was a Spanish record for Miguel Duran in the 200 free. Duran recorded 148.18 in the heats and had to settle for second in the final behind Victor Manuel. Both swimmers 149s in that final. Elsewhere, Miguel Ortiz stopped the clock in 24.86 in the 50 back, moving into second place in the rankings behind Camille Lacourte's 24.85 from Marseille. They're the only two swimmers so far under 25 this year. But perhaps the biggest news from Spain came in the 100 fly. Poland's Konrad Czerniak leads the world rankings after the European champion and double world medalist clocked an impressive 51.37. Now, meanwhile, the European 200 fly champion is Victor Bromar of Denmark. He's in great form with a world-leading 155.39 at the Danish Open in Copenhagen over the weekend. Meanwhile, back in Spain, Melanie Costa, the world silver medalist in the 400 free, took the women's 200 free, 158.01. Two Italians looking good for the Italian relay, Alice Mizau and Chiara Massini-Lucetti. They were second and third, also clocking 158s. Costa was also a winner in the 200 back, 2:10.25 her time, as European champion Duana de Rocha also made the qualifying standard for Kazan. Meanwhile, in Denmark, Mia Nielsen swam a 158 high in the 200 free. Nielsen had already won the 100 back, 59.7 her time there. Also at that meet, Govorov's 23.37 puts him second in the world rankings in the 50 fly. And for the women's 50 fly, Jeanette Ottersen also second in the rankings, her 25.48. She's behind Sarah Hjulström now, who swam a 25.41 in Marseille. Ottersen also with 25.1 in the 50 free. Rika Pedersen, no surprises, she won the 100 breast in a 107. That compares with Ruta Meiler-Tuta's 105.99 in Sheffield this weekend. She's in second in the world rankings so far this year. That's behind the controversial effort of the 105.89 from Yulia Efimova, of course. Well, that's a roundup for the swimming news for the weekend. Now we're going to head to the interviews. We'll triathlon with Stu Robinson and Joe Friel. Have a look at these. Well, I'm delighted to have with us today Stewart Robinson from the ACTC team, back again for a terrific week of training with the group that you've got there. Stewart, multiple age group champion in triathlon, European champion in the Olympic distance for the 45 to 50 in 2010, 2013 world bronze medalist in the 50 to 54 age group. We're not giving away too many state secrets here, but there we go. And the winner in Noosa in 2012. You've had a great week, you've got a great group of people here. Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, busy week again. Fantastic weather towards the end of the week. Great facilities as always. We've had quite a tough week. A lot of bike miles in, but a lot of swimming as well, and a lot of technical stuff from yourselves at the Best Centre. It's been good.
So what do you want to work on with the group of people that you typically get on the training weeks that you run?
Basically, or mostly, they're keen amateurs. So technique's brilliant. It's just giving people experience of perhaps more like full-time triathlon training. It's an overload week for everybody, and just to go back better, more rounded triathletes.
and with a better understanding of what the sport is about and what
Absolutely.
they can do when
Yeah.
they're training back at home.
Yeah.
Now you've got plenty of experience, and one of the things you do when you come here, you organise or you've put together this little sprint race. Tell us how that developed and how they coped with that this week.
Yeah, it's actually, we've been coming pretty much ever since you've been open, and it's something that I've done every year, so it's quite a good, for the people that return year on year, it's quite a good measure. But it's also just, we've got the facilities, we've got the weather, so why not do it? It's all about, too often we train just in the 3 sports, but don't train to put it together. So doing it in an environment like this, it just helps so much. So I'll do a brick session earlier in the week where we put transitions in and biking and running. This just finishes it off. It means you can put it all together as an event, as a little event. Everybody has a good laugh. It's a good, hard, intense session, and it's a bit of contrast to the big bike miles and stuff that we're doing as well.
Well, we're getting a chance to see some of the transitions and some of the finishes of the race. How important are these transitions when people who may be quite new to the sport come in and start doing competitions and races of their own?
They can be really, really important. If you see them on the TV, the top guys racing, the ITU guys, if they miss it in transition and they miss the bike path, that's it. They could game over. Age group wise, it's just the same. Why would you give somebody, if it was a straight running race, I always say, why would you give somebody a 30 seconds head start? You just wouldn't do it. So you've got to be sharp in transitions.
Now, it seems like you've got quite a social group up in Cumbria. What's your advice to people that want to get involved in triathlon and want to get involved in triathlon in your area?
Just do it. Find our club, find any club, but our club's very, very welcoming. We're quite one of the biggest clubs in Cumbria. It's Aragon's Cumbrian Tri Club. I'm head coach, but I'm also a private coach as well, so if people weren't ready for a club, they could come and see me and I'd give them a bit of a start. But yeah, just do it, get involved.
Alright, thanks Stewart. Great to see you again, and we look forward to seeing you again here in the future.
I have been around the sport for a long time. It's been 32 years since I started doing triathlon, and the sport has changed immensely since I began. At first, in the first 10 years, there was a great deal of discussion about what order should the events take place. Should it be bike, swim, run, or run, swim, bike, or some combination? And we debated how long the events should be to make it an Olympic distance race. How long should the swim be relative to the bike and the run? And so this went on for years and years and years, these discussions. And I think triathletes who come into the sport now see it as something which was kind of like a finished product. When it started, it was by no means a finished product. It was a project in the works, which went on for many years. And it's now come to the point it's actually a sport. It's not just an experiment. It's now a sport. So I've seen tremendous change. I've seen tremendous change in the athletes. When they first came to the sport, they had absolutely no idea of how to change. How to train. So consequently, they were doing weird stuff, experimenting, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And we've now gotten to the point there seems to be kind of a general way of training for triathlon that has become accepted across the board, especially by the more experienced athletes. They now understand how to train for the sport. It's interesting that in the early days of the sport, when all this experimentation was going on, there were people who discovered things that worked that we've not been able to replicate. Even 20 years later, we're still trying to figure out what Mark Allen did that made him such a tremendous athlete back in the late 80s, early 90s. Dave Scott throughout that same period of time, and other athletes who just did things that were remarkable through experimentation. And we're still trying to get back to some of the things they pulled off when they were just in the early stages of the sport. So we've still got a lot to learn, and sometimes that learning involves relearning what somebody knew back 30 years ago. So yes, it has changed a lot. For me, I'm a very curious person when it comes to things like that I enjoy. I always want to understand more about them, understand why they're the way they are. Could you do it a different way and make it better? Is there, so I'm just very curious, and so consequently, for example, I start every day when I'm home. Every day starts by reading research. I have a stack of research abstracts at my desk, and every day starts by pulling the next one off the top of the list or off the top of the pile and reading that abstract to see if there's anything there that could give me new insights or new ways of seeing the world. And if I see there's got some promise, then I'll go back and seek out that study and read the details of it. Sometimes they just get canned also. And so I go through that every day, and when I find a study that's interesting to me, I make notes on it. I have notes that have been gathered now for, I don't know, 25 or more years. I go back a long way, so I can go back and pull up topics that I was thinking about maybe 3 decades ago, and see what I found out about it then, and see how it's progressed over 30-some years to where it is right now, whatever the topic may be. Some really weird stuff also, but it basically just comes down to curiosity. I'm always asking other athletes how they do it, how they're able to pull off their performances. I talk to other coaches a lot, and amazingly, people send me the details of what they've done to get to where they are without even being asked. Somehow it's become common knowledge that I'm interested in what they may be doing, I guess. So I get out of the blue emails from athletes, age group athletes and elite athletes and coaches, just telling me what they're doing and maybe having a question that goes along with, we're doing this, what do you think about that, and how could I tweak it to make it better? So I'm kind of I'm fortunate to be in a position, I guess, where I'm well enough known that people trade information with me. I kind of feel like it's a two-way street. I'm learning from them and they're learning something from me, and because of that we all grow together. Yeah, the information that we want the campers to learn depends on how they come to us. There's always a wide range of abilities and backgrounds, skills, knowledge that they bring to the camp. Sometimes we have people who are complete novices who are riding a bike outdoors for the first time, perhaps because they've only been in the sport for a few months, and so by springtime they've been indoors for the entire winter, and they're getting on a bicycle on the road for the first time and riding with people. So they've got such basic things they have to develop, just handling skills on a bicycle. Swimming. Swimmers, I found triathletes tend to be very poor swimmers when they come into the sport. They don't understand that it's a skill sport. That's really what it is primarily, is skill. You've got to develop a skill. And so they spend too much time trying to work on fitness and not enough time developing the technique of being a good swimmer. And so, again, and that's almost across the board. We find that we have 30 athletes in the camp, there'll be 28 of them need to work on their swim skills. Somehow they've missed that topic, and they've gone straight to trying to get fitness instead of skill. And so we have to teach them how to swim. So we start from scratch. We teach the most basic things and bring them forward as we go. And the same thing happens with running, but to a lesser extent. With running, most of them know how to run already, and it's not too difficult to get the technique figured out, although there's some tweaking we have to do with some athletes. But nevertheless, that is probably the easiest of the 3 sports for them to adapt or pick up and understand. So it really comes down to how do they come to us. Some come to us with excellent skills, some come to us with poor skills, and so this week is designed around developing skill primarily. Skill and knowledge about how to train. So we spend the days working on skills with some fitness thrown in around the edges, and then we spend the evenings in the classroom working on knowledge. They can go back as a smarter athlete and a more skilled athlete. I'm not sure I did this week. We had some pretty strong young groups this week. I ride with them all, bike ride with the groups. We take turns riding. We break into various groups by ability, and we ride. I spend time riding with each group. And when I'm with the fast, long group, that's extremely challenging to stay with that group. But I basically like to ride a bike. I ride every day when I'm home, every day, at least 2 hours at a time, quite often more than that. And I enjoy training. It's just my lifestyle. And I still race, but it's mostly bike races now. I don't do any triathlon anymore. I've had to stop running several years ago, knee problem. But basically, I still race bikes, and so I like to be competitive, and consequently, I train to hopefully be competitive. there are going to be good days and bad days for every athlete where you have the day that just didn't feel like you got much out of it for various reasons, lifestyle issues, fatigue from having trained a lot, things that get in the way of really having good workouts on some days. And it's good on those days to remind yourself of why do I do this? Why do I keep on doing triathlon? And we have to kind of sometimes go back to when we started and think, what got me into this sport in the first place, and am I still getting out of it what I wanted to get initially? Or has that somehow morphed into something which is different, not necessarily worse, but different, and am I still happy with that difference? I think we all come into the sport because we just enjoy the swimming, biking, and running, the variety that goes into the sport as opposed to just doing one thing every day. So I think that's what brings people into it, and we need to remind ourselves why we do this, which is to have fun. That's the primary reason we got into it all in the first place. Everybody. Even the Dave Scotts and Mark Allens, they got into it because of fun initially. They became legends and elites later on, but first it was fun. Same for everybody. That's the first thing. Second thing is they need to realize that skill is based on sport. Let me get that backwards. Sport is based on skill. So if you're going to become an athlete, a triathlete, you need to develop skills. And I'm afraid sometimes we overlook that. We bypass the skills and attempt to become more fit. And that can make for a waste of time in your training. That if you're starting to do things that are designed around fitness but they're very poorly, the movements are poor, ineffective, inefficient, then you're simply wasting time. Third thing I would say is that the athlete needs to always be thinking in terms of how much training do I really need to do, and because we all have a limited amount of time. Not everybody has 20 or more hours a week to train. You can make a lot of mistakes in training if you have 20 plus hours a week to train. But if you've got 8 hours a week to train, which is about where most triathletes are, they need to be very focused on what they're going to do for those 8 hours this week to reap the benefit. And that's where having a coach comes in. Somebody can help you make those decisions, what's most important to work on. If the athlete is self-coached, they need to spend some time trying to understand a little bit about sports science so they can make decisions for themselves on what things are going to be best for them to progress to where they want to go to. And eventually we all get to the point we want to get better. Everybody comes into the sport just to finish the race. That doesn't last very long. Eventually we're all talking about how can I go faster? How can I do a longer race? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're always thinking about change. So those are 3 things I would suggest.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the program today. That's all for today, but we'll see you later in the week. We've got our hotel special where we focus on the brand new Blue Water Hotel, which is just 200 metres from the swim centre here. And we also round up the rest of the swimming news. We'll see you then. Bye for now.